I'm Alexander Rennie, and I've just walked 13 miles from Royston along the Icknield Way Trail. I don't expect you to be impressed, but I do expect you to pay attention, for this is Baldock, and this is my 914th Forgotten Town.
Baldock, Hertfordshire, population 10,670. Rank number 890.
I have reached the Orange Tree Public House, where the natives are suitably excited on account of local team, England, having made it to the televised stages of the Rugby Union World Cup. Unfortunately, the fellow with the ball seems incapable of telling the time when attempting to take his penalty kick, so we leave the locals to their frustration and retire to a quiet corner to consider the history of their town.
Surely isn't that the most stupid possible thing you could ever do?
First of all, dear listener, take all your preconceived notions of Baldock, Hertfordshire, and throw them in the bin. They're worthless. These are the only things you really need to know. First, Baldock has been continuously inhabited since prehistoric times. The iron-aged hill fort at Arbury Banks is where it all kicked off, circa 1000 BC, before the inhabitants, possibly seduced by the Titanic plum porter available at the Orange Tree, moved to the lower ground, now occupied by the town. Clearly, the inhabitants were not at home when Mr. Doomsday came round collecting census info, but they bounced back with abandon in the Middle Ages. One persistent rumour that no one's managed to disprove, so we may as well assume it to be true, is that the town's name is a Gallicised version of Baghdad, conjured up by the Knights Templar, who had vague operational experience in both locations, failing to secure the future of Christendom in the Iraqi town of this name, while successfully founding a secondary school here in this one. Maybe the name check was an early attempt at establishing a twin town, a lofty reference to Baldock's importance as a thriving market and military settlement, or some veiled sarcastic reference to its climatic and constantly shifting governance structure. Perhaps we'll never know, but I'm pretty sure the pubs are better here. Pause briefly at this point to check the post bag, finding there a slightly dog-eared telegram from one Gerald of Yorkshire, who says, "Dear Mr. Rennie," extra points for fawning politeness there, Gerald. Why, oh why do you keep visiting Hertfordshire whilst neglecting God's own county of Yorkshire? Well, the answer, like you, Gerald, is quite simple. Everywhere in Yorkshire is worth visiting, and so I have already been there. This series is called Forgotten Towns for a reason, in that I have literally forgotten to visit them previously, and until today I could easily have said that this explains why so much of Hertfordshire remained unvisited, in spite of my having significant familial links to parts of this county. However, I can attest from the safety of my studio after visiting Royston, Baldock and, spoiler alert, coming up in the next show, Letchworth Garden City, that North Hertfordshire has a genuine charm to it, and whilst it may not echo the broad acres of the North Country, it's not all dormer identikit housing for the dullards of metropolitan desk jobs. We defer to Pevsner to describe the town's most interesting building. At the south end of the high street lies Tesco supermarket, built 1985, behind the 1924 facade of the Cosmos Photographics factory, in monumental classical style with a pavilion of 3 tall arches, ionic columns, and a frieze of winged sphinxes. So, whilst you may only have dropped by to pick up some cheap booze, a pot noodle and maybe a scratch card, at least you'll be parking your double-functional vehicle in the shadow of something echoing the greatness of Rome and Egypt in a town whose name pays tribute to Mesopotamia at the very cradle of civilization itself.
Coca-Cola, Baron, Cola, and Padilla. I'm a killer. I've been everywhere.